our next speaker, Professor and Department Head of Humanities and Arts, Kate Moncrief. She'll be speaking about how they're handling the music and theater this fall. And I want to first of all thank you, Kate, for offering your yoga classes through the Be Well Together program. I've participated in them. It gets my daughter off the iPad. We've actually been doing the yoga classes together, and that's something that's been really special and really fun for both of us. So thank you for doing those, and I really hope we're able to keep those up even after this is over. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for that, Danielle. That makes me so happy. That really makes my heart happy to hear that you've enjoyed the yoga classes, but it makes me even more happy to know that you're doing it together as a family. I'm slightly choked up, so thank you for sharing that. And thank you again to Jean King for initiating the Be Well Together, along with my colleagues Angela Rodriguez and Janine Sarinko. We're there every week. Come join us. But today I've been asked to talk about the arts. So I'm going to talk about theater, but I'm going to share my time with my colleague, Director of Jazz Studies, Doug Olson, who will talk about music. As you know, many of our students participate in the arts. We have creative and talented students who are musicians and actors and technicians. And as you might guess, COVID has required new kinds of creativity to be able to make theater and to be able to make music together safely. So in A term, the Humanities and Arts Department presented a play, Every Brilliant Thing by Duncan Macmillan and Johnny Donahoe. In this one-person show, the narrator tells the story of her mother's depression and suicide and responds to it by creating a list of everything brilliant in the world, like number 1, ice cream, number 2, water fights. With the help of the audience, the list grows to include a million brilliant things. I chose this show a year ago, but I thought it was important in pandemic times, even more so. Well, as a dramaturg, I asked the question, why this show, why now? And this show that really confronts challenging times and challenging things and finds a way to get through it seems even more appropriate for us to do. I was the director, I should say, along with a brilliant student team that I'm going to talk more about. So we had a production team of 19, including electrical and computer engineering major Fiona Doyle, who completed her minor capstone in theater with the leading role. I'll note that this required her to memorize 40 pages and an hour-long monologue, which she did word perfect. Both the assistant director, mathematical sciences major Emily Baker, and the stage manager, psychology and professional writing major Emily Benremer, completed their HUA requirement with this practicum. Next slide, please. Unable to rehearse indoors, we moved our rehearsals out of the little theater onto the Higgins House lawn. I never imagined directing a show with a measuring tape in hand, staging each scene, including audience participation at a 6-foot distance. The students showed fortitude, ingenuity, and innovation in meeting and solving the COVID-related challenges that included working safely together, adhering to those protocols in the space, social distancing during audience participation, and the use of individual props. So normally a prop could be handed between people, and we could not do that. One student, Arnold Moralt, a robotics and engineering major, was our properties designer. He worked in the makerspace to design audience cue cards. I'm going to show one of them here, individual cue cards, and props for the audience participants that were then individually packaged and sealed. So you can see those on the chair. Audience members entered the space, the props were packaged on the chair. And then there was a props table, actually 2 of them for audience participants who would go to the table, pick up the prop they were supposed to use, and unpackage it. My favorite, actually, let me see if I can show this, was this one, number 992. Knowing to jangle the keys at the wildlife park if you want the others to come out. And he did this in the shape of an otter keychain, and each audience member took their props home with them. A nice little takeaway. Next slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry, could you go back to that last slide? One little comment. Thank you. So you'll see the production team there at the top, everybody masked at a distance. You'll see those lines that we use to help keep us safe, spray painted onto what remains of the grass over there. And then you're also going to see our technical team, that's the quorum. You might recognize that space. So they were able to look outside the window into the gardens and keep a distance from the people in the space. So next slide, please. The show itself was in the tent of the Higgins House Gardens, and I want to give a big thank you to facilities who worked with us on this. This was no small matter to get the space reserved and for them to work with us to share the space so students could study there, but we could also have that protected space under a tent to do this show. And as you saw, the quorum served as our tech booth. The technical team constructed a truss and hung lights and sound equipment, and they didn't falter when rain and high winds were predicted for our dress rehearsal night, our last technical and dress rehearsal the day before we opened. They had to come in and take everything down and return early the next morning to rebuild it. It was a big feat. We worked with our medical advisory board to determine a safe way for Fiona to perform the show without a mask. This included audio support, so not just amplification, but supporting her voice. This was designed by our student sound engineer, Mitchell Jacobs. I'm happy to say the show went off without a hitch. So you can see some photos from the actual performance there. One more little note, as you probably know, Broadway and regional theaters are shuttered. So the theater industry right now is devastated. There's lots of people out of work. My heart goes out to my friends who work in the industry. We succeeded at WPI because of the support, because of the testing, because of the safety protocols, the hard work that we all put in over the summer to try to figure out how to do this safely. We succeeded in producing one of the only live theater shows with a live audience anywhere in the country. Next slide, please. And finally, I want to give a shout out to our two student producing organizations, to Vox and to Mask. The student organization Vox produced Lights Up, an online cabaret that involved 52 students in performance and technical roles, and to the student organization Mask, which presented Love Sick, directed by Katie Duchette. It had 44 students involved in official roles, actors, designers, and technical coordinators. My final note is this was such a joy. I'm incredibly proud of our creative, innovative, brilliant, and hardworking students who are showing that the arts and technology go hand in hand at WPI.